guest this evening is a director, writer, producer, and actor. His company, Fuzz on the Lens Productions, offers a wide variety of cinematography, videography, and photography services. A partial sample of projects he's been involved with include Penance Lane, which I reviewed, I want to say around April, a really good film, Abnormal Attraction, which he directed, Terrifier 1, and in process right now, Terrifier 2 for all you horror fans out there, and Halloween 60. And if horror's not your bag, definitely check out Halloween 60 on YouTube because it's funny as hell. And it's so well done. So please welcome to the Eclectic Arts virtual studio, Mr. Michael Leavy. Michael.
How are you? Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing up in New York?
We're doing all right. I mean, it's curfew time now, so, there's not much we can do outside between the COVID and the protests and things. But, sometimes things are necessary to get ahead. So.
Yeah, for sure. And we were kind of talking pre-show when the pandemic hit. What were you were working on Terrifier 2, I believe, and then that's when things shut down. So you can kind of speak to that whole kind of timeline.
Yeah, for sure. So we were close to the end of shooting Terrifier 2. We were actually up in the mountains. Our executive producer has a really awesome barn that we basically converted into a soundstage. And so we were up there when all of this stuff started coming out about COVID-19, coronavirus and everything. But we really didn't have much service up there. So we were getting it in drips and drabs because you had to, go to a certain spot to get in. And, so we were really out of touch with a lot of the earlier stuff that was going on. But then when things really hit, towards the end of the middle of March there, that's when we had to stop shooting. We had to get back to the city. And we only had about 6 days left, which really stinks that we weren't able to finish it right then and there. But at the same token, it was nice to take a little bit of a break. But now we're kind of itching to get back because, it's been more than a little bit of a break at this point. But so that's really where we were, about 6 days left. But it's cool that we were able to kind of regroup and talk about where we want to go with those last 6 days. And I know Damien, the director, has been nonstop editing. So he's been getting some, really great things put together. So he hasn't missed a beat himself. But then at the same token, he's able to make his notes and what he wants to do. Sometimes stepping back from a project really gets to open your eyes a little bit and see, what you might be missing or what you might want to add. So I know that that's definitely happening with Terrifier 2.
Awesome. I can absolutely relate to that as a writer, that sometimes when I've written something, I'll let it sit for a day and then I come back to it and then kind of look at it with fresh eyes and kind of see, do I still feel that way about something, pro or con before I publish it?
You have to. It's the best way to go about it. I'm an editor too, so I edit a lot of my own stuff, which is not great when you're directing because a lot of time it's hard to separate yourself from the project. But the thing that's nice is we have a great team, so I'll kind of live with it and edit, and then I'll be able to step back, and the other guys who haven't seen it come in and they take a look at it, and then they were able to see it with fresh eyes, and then finally I'll let it sit, and then I'll come back and examine and look at it. Because the hardest thing is to cut your own work, but as an editor, you have to do that. You have to get it done. Not everyone's going to think your 3-hour movie's great, so you got to.
Yeah, no, well said. So let's kind of go back for all the people out there watching. Where were you born and raised, and then when did the interest in film and everything around it start for you?
Sure. So I was born in Staten Island, New York. My interest in film happened at a very young age. I remember vividly, I was about 4 or 5 when I was interested in just the idea of acting and making movies and stuff. I did a lot of theater when I was younger, acting, and I remember taking my mother's camcorder and, one of the old school ones, the big ones that you put on your shoulder, and me and my brothers would run around with the kids in the neighborhood and just make movies. And then when I went to high school is when I really started to kind of understand the idea of, constructing a really good story and, lighting and things like that. So I ran my high school's pretty much television studio. I was the main desk anchor, and I did the most skits and short films in the studio's history. I just love getting the teachers involved and make them play parts and stuff, which looking back on it, that was me really coming into my own as a director. I was working with, all different types of people with all different types of background, older, younger, and, everybody in between. And that's where I, really linked up with my business partner, Stephen Della Sala, one of them. And, we kind of went from there. He would shoot everything, and now he still shoots everything, together. He's our cinematographer. So, among many other things, but so kind of went from there, and then went to college and just, kept going and going and going. So we formed Fuzz on the Lens, the company, legally.
Okay, okay. And as you were doing theater and doing the things in high school with the TV studio, did you always have an interest in genre things, specifically horror things, or did that come later?
I've always loved horror, and that's really from I think my mother and my grandfather. I remember they would show me all different kinds of horror movies. I watched Leprechaun when I was like 4. I watched Halloween around the same age. Big fan of Stephen King's It with Tim Curry. Actually, you could probably see Tim Curry here. So I've always loved horror, and I really love comedy too, which is why a lot of our things kind of fall in line with that horror comedy thing. Big into improv and all that stuff. So it was really a nice, kind of mesh for me personally to be able to be working in both fields, both genres. I mean, and it's just I think they kind of do go hand in hand too, because what is horror? Horror is to totally scare the daylights out of someone, and comedy is supposed to make them laugh and feel comfortable. So they're both at the two ends of the spectrum. So I'm just crazy.
Well, that makes sense. So what would you consider the first, I don't want to say real project, but the first project that you were like, we're putting this out there? Maybe Fuzz on the Lens wasn't even like a company yet, but it's like, we're going to put this out there either online or in some other fashion. And from that point on, we're moving forward.
So the project for me was actually, there's a poster behind me here. It's called Pray, Love, Eat. That I think was the first project to where we started taking things a little more seriously. Because we did a lot of short films in high school and stuff, and even in college. And then this was at the end of our college year, the end of our whole, 4 years that I actually did this film. It was the thesis project, like the culmination of everything. And it was a horror comedy. And that was where we were like, okay, we're going to take this next step into doing this at a more professional level. And then from there, we did a feature film called Catch of the Day, which not many people have seen. And actually, that's my other poster on the other side there. So we ended up doing that film, which was a lot of fun. And, that was a feature. So the first one was a short, and then we did a feature. And we took that film down to a festival that was run by Tamara Glynn of Halloween 5 in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And we ended up winning a couple of awards there with it. And that's where we linked up with Tyler Main and Renee Geerlings and Leslie Easterbrook and just so many different talented people in the business.
Okay. We were kind of talking about this pre-show about how you make connections with people sometimes at times when you weren't even looking for a connection, but there it is. And you just have to remember that, oh, when I'm working on this, that one person was really great. I should get a hold of them and see if they want to get involved with it. I think for some people out there that just love to watch movies, but don't really know the whole behind the scenes part of it, from an independent level to a huge multi-million-dollar level in Hollywood. How do you get a project off the ground? They always talk about something being greenlit, but you have to find investors, you have to find some other things. So can you kind of speak to that, just those pieces in the early stages of getting any project going?
Yeah, so getting a movie, any movie, whether it's a short film or a feature or a TV show or whatever, obviously it starts with an idea. We know this. So it's some kind of idea that you have written or that you acquired from somebody who's written it. And then the biggest thing is to go out and try to find the money for it. Now, making a movie, no matter if it's a multi-million-dollar movie or a low independent film, the formula is always the same. It's just the money gets bigger, right? That's really the biggest thing behind it is, you got to have a good story. You got to get actors. You got to find the funds. You got to, pick the locations and you got to make the costumes and storyboard and all those things. So none of that really changes on the levels. It's just a matter of now you have more money, now you can do bigger things, and now you can play a little more, right? So to get your movie really off the ground is first have an idea, and then it's really the hardest part, which is trying to find the funds for it. And that could take years, to kind of bring together. You make a pitch deck, and you have basically all the highlights of your film and the vision of your film, and it could be like a PDF thing, or it could be one of the virtual ones that they do, the PowerPoints and stuff. And then you just go around to different producers or people who are interested in films, or sometimes you just stumble upon someone on a plane, and they overhear you, or they see what you're working on. You start talking, and they got some money somewhere and they want to diversify their portfolio, and now they're interested in investing in film. So there's no wrong way to find funding, but it is the hardest, and anybody will tell you always, finding money for projects is always, no matter how great the project is, it's just people, it's their hard-earned work, hard-earned money that they worked for, and not a lot of times do they just want to throw it away to someone that they just met. So you really have to be prepared too, and make sure that you have all your ducks lined up in a row, and you want to make sure that you have a project that you believe in, because you can tell that if you're not passionate about the project and it's just kind of just thrown to the side, no one's going to believe in your project or want to give you money for it. So that's the hardest. And then once you get the funding, then you got to obviously go get your locations, and you got to get your talent, and you got to make sure that you have your shot lists and your storyboards, and then that kind of keeps building and building. And as a director, you want to make sure you have everything lined up and ready to go. So once you're ready to shoot the movie, everything's all been worked out. There'll be problems, there always is, but at least now you can focus on the new arising problems then, because you were so prepared for everything else that you knew was going to happen. And then distribution's a whole nother story. After the editing and everything, that's another craziness.
No, that was really insightful. I think a lot of people out there that just heard what you said, it just kind of started opening their eyes to that whole process, that there's so many steps to doing anything. Doesn't matter if it's a short film or a feature or anything. It's like, it doesn't just happen. They don't just.
It's a lot of work. And that's what they always say, is that, making a movie is like having a child. You conceive it, and then you kind of watch it, you nurture it, you watch it grow up, and then you make the thing, and then you got to send it off into the world and hope that you raised it right, and then see if people, see if it's successful or not.
That's a great way to put it. I'll have to remember that next time somebody asks me about it. It's just like having a child and doing all those steps. That's perfect. That's a perfect example. What I want to do right now is we're going to talk about Fuzz on the Lens Productions and future projects and some other things, but I want to make sure that we show your video clip that you sent to us, so people out there can get an idea of what Fuzz on the Lens Productions offers, what you do, what you've done as an actor. So for the Alice headquarter folks, if you could roll that video clip right now, that would be perfect, please. Well, there was supposed to be more to that. That was the first section of it.
That's all right.
We can always link it up back later, but at least folks got to see a lot of different clips from the work that you've done as an actor, and also from your own film, Abnormal Attraction. So let's jump into that. Being the director of a film, your own film, like you said, it's like your child. You do all these pieces to it. And where did the brainchild come for this particular movie and story? And then what was that process like getting it to fruition?
Yeah, so Abnormal Attraction originally actually was a short, which for anybody who knows the, without giving anything away, is it's kind of like an anthology movie where it has three separate storylines and three separate parts that kind of all come together at the end. And the reason that that came about was because we had originally written just a short film, which was the first part of the movie, which was took place in an AA meeting. And the idea came about, we were at another festival actually, the New York Horror Film Festival, which happens around Halloween. And a lot of people were all dressed up there in different costumes and things, and, you know, sexy vampire and, you know, different things of that nature. And me and my partners, we all started talking and saying, you know, this is interesting how people have a fetish almost about, you know, these monsters and things, because they look hideous, but yet there's something sexy about them, you know, like the zombie and the whatever. So my friend who doesn't understand horror, my business partner Steve, I mentioned before, he doesn't understand horror really at all. It's not his thing. You know, he's the comedy guy, but he was asking a lot of questions where I can't believe people are really into this. He goes, well, what if there was like a meeting where people would go for their fetishes to these, you know, horror creatures and stuff. And then we started thinking and started throwing the comedy twist into it, and that's where it came about. And then obviously we, you know, we said, well, there could be more to this where we can inject some moral themes and things, especially what's going on in the world. I mean, now it's kind of amplified to what it was just a few years ago. So if anybody should actually watch the movie now and kind of understand the lesson that we're trying to give to everyone. But the whole concept behind it too was that this is a fairy tale kind of movie, and fairy tales are used to teach children morality tales, right? And different lessons that they're going to use and take forward with them as they get older in life. And our film's idea was, well, you know, maybe the adults kind of forgot, you know, those lessons, and let's kind of put this and infuse this into a more adult style, humorous film. And that's kind of where the idea all kind of blossomed. Directing it was definitely a challenge because it was a very ambitious film for us. There's over 60 actors, 65 actors in the film, and you know, so it's a big cast. We worked with a lot of genre stars and a lot of upcoming stars that now went off to be on Broadway and different platforms. And for me, I was also in the film a little bit, so that was interesting to take my director hat off. And the funny part was, so I usually have a beard. That's like my look. And in the film, so directing, I'd have my beard and I'd be myself directing. And we were working with Bruce Davison, and he didn't know that I was going to be the character Timmy in the film, the, you know, the young, kind of shy, introverted, perverted, peeping Tom. So he had no idea that I was going to be that role. So I was directing my beard and everything, and my hair was longer. And then the next day I shaved it all. So how I looked in the film was completely clean shaven and showed up to set. He didn't know it was me at all. He's like, wait a minute. Because I started, you know, giving out direction, and I'm dressed as he looks in the film. He's like, who's this young kid, you know, giving out direction? Where's Mike? So that was fun. But yeah, the thing with this is if you're directing a movie and you're also in the film, is have a good team surrounding you that you trust, because then you could kind of fully immerse yourself in the role, and you know that you're getting taken care of, you know, technically and all of those things. And then you could kind of step out, give your direction, and go right back in. You really need people that's why I work with the same people all the time, because you learn to trust and you build that connection, and it's useful in that kind of situation.
No, that makes sense. I think you hear about the same thing with other directors that they've had the same people for like 30 years because they've built such a relationship.
Yeah, it's a relationship too. Why, you know, why change something that's not broken? That's what they say, right? So
yeah, for sure. Something we were talking about pre-show that I think, again, a lot of people out there aren't quite clear on what it is, and I was just curious myself, and you explained it really, really well, was what's the difference between the director and the producer on a film? What's that role of the producer? What are they actually doing?
So obviously the director is in charge of all the creative of the film, right? And that's, you know, what you see on screen. He kind of deals with this story, and he deals with the actors, and he deals with all of that kind of stuff, the creative process. Whereas the producers, on the other hand, are more of the business side of things, which they make sure that you have your locations, they make sure that your talent's contracts are signed, they deal with SAG, they make sure that all the money's in the right places and that you don't go over budget. So that's the best way to break down the difference between a producer and a director. Now, a lot of times the producer could really be in charge of the whole production if they're the ones who put all the money up and hired the director. Or sometimes the director would come in and, hire producers to take care of that while he gets his vision out. So there's no right or wrong way to go about it, but that's the best way, I think, to separate the two jobs.
Okay, all right. And for people out there that maybe haven't seen some of your work, what would be your best death on camera, on screen, that you've been a part of, that you can maybe describe to people out there?
I have to say the best death I was a part of is definitely Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2, I was going to say. Yeah, I wish I was in that one. No, I didn't make it. Terrifier. And that's just a credit to Damien Leone, the director. He's so good, and he comes from the school of thought of Tom Savini, those kind of guys. I know that's his role model, and he really is following in the footsteps, if I'd say so myself. He really pays attention to detail. He's so good with the special effects and the practical effects and things. But my scene in that film was a decapitation scene, and it was one of the most gruesome, one of the most fun to shoot, and it really plays well on I think, at least, on camera. But it's funny, like a lot of films now, my head seems to get cut off, or my throat seems to get sliced. I don't know what people are trying to tell me, but that just seems to be where, if I'm in a horror movie, that's where my career kind of is ending up. My character kind of ends up. It's happened like 3 or 4 times now.
That's funny. And you were even showing me, like, I think you have the mold or something from Terrifier.
Oh,
yeah, behind you.
That here was actually, so this was created from the mold that was used in the original Terrifier here. So that's my face there. And the one that was used on screen that had all the facial hair and everything actually went to one of the producers who is in Australia. So he has my head sitting on his mantle in Australia, and I got the second copy there. So.
Got it. Oh man, do you have other props from other films you've been a part of that just you?
Yeah, well, I just ended up moving, so not a lot of stuff is here. But actually, I do have an Art the Clown for anybody. This is a prop from the movie, but this is pretty cool. And then somebody had made this. I can show you this. This is really awesome. So this here is my face on a saw with Art holding my head. Yeah, really, really cool stuff.
Nice.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff around here. Most of it's the normal attraction stuff are in storage and stuff, but I do have a Fuzz and Lens clapper.
There we go. So as you mentioned, whenever things get back to quote unquote normal, you'll have some time to finish up Terrifier 2, whenever that happens to be. And then what other projects do you have coming up, or that you're kind of already, poking through on the timeline?
Yeah, so I could give this away. We haven't really said much about it publicly, but I could say a little bit. I'll give you an inside scoop. So we're working on a film now that, we were able to really get far ahead in during this quarantine. Since we can't shoot anything, we could do a lot of pre-production work. So we're working on a horror film. It's a horror thriller called Stream. And it basically deals with horror in the technology world. And that's all I can give away on that. But we already have some really cool people attached to the film, including Felissa Rose, Mark Holton from the Leprechaun franchise, and Pee Wee Herman, among other films, Gacy. And we also have David Howard Thornton is a part of it, who plays Art the Clown in Terrifier. And we have Danny Roebuck, who from, many things, but Penance Lane in particular, since you just watched that. So we have a really cool cast, and some others that I can't talk about right now that are really big in the horror genre. That are like like the ones I just mentioned are pretty big, and then a couple other ones are really really cool too. So I just can't. The contracts have yet to be signed, but they're ready to go very soon.
Awesome. No, that's already got me excited, and I don't even know exactly what it's going to be other than what you just said. It still sounds cool.
It's cool. We're trying to do something different, because every horror film, right from the beginning of time, they attack your safe space. And I think that's what horror films do so brilliantly. Is you have Psycho, that kind of attacked, you're in a motel, and then you have a Halloween that attacked the residential area and the babysitting, and then Nightmare on Elm Street took care of your dreams, and Jason was on campgrounds and stuff. So all these horror films attack something that you feel safe about. What do you feel safe about now, but yet still a little off with? Technology, cell phones. Is the government watching me? Are they listening to me? Are they getting all my passwords from the internet and all these crazy things? So that's all I can leave you with on that, but that's what we kind of exploit a little bit. And we have a whole franchise mapped out that could hopefully really make some headway in the horror genre.
Awesome. Well, we've got about another minute left, so for those that are watching this and want to find out more about you, this is a great time to plug. Where can they find you online?
Sure. So just everywhere, it's the easiest is search Fuzz on the Lens, Fuzz on the Lens Productions. We have a website. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're launching some new things very, very soon that you're going to be able to see some really cool stuff, because, we have YouTube channel that you can see some older short films. So just search Fuzz on the Lens anywhere, and you could find me through that too, Michael Leavy. I'm pretty accessible through all that. So just search Fuzz on the Lens.
Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time today. I learned a lot.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.
Yeah, spending the time with you. And I hope that you stay safe up there in New York, and hopefully we get through this and we start seeing your films up on the screen instead of on the TV.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. You stay safe too. It was a pleasure being on.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.